Welcome to GBS Dialogue with Najma Minhas. Pakistan is in day 4 after its controversial elections, and today the State Department has also expressed a concern over the irregularities. I'm joined with Moeed Pirzada and Ryan Grim, who is the bureau head for The Intercept and an author of several books, the latest being The Squad, and I will put a link to that book down below in the description. Ryan, you are man of the hour. You asked that question to which Matthew Miller gave his response. I am going to just very quickly show that clip to our audience and then get your response on that.
Ryan, go ahead, and then we'll wrap for today.
Yeah, wanted to pick up real quickly on your Pakistan comment. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you said that you were the State Department hopes that the Pakistani courts will take a close look at this matter. You've also heard from a lot of members of Congress who have said there should be an independent investigation of the fraud before the U.S. recognizes any new government. I'm not sure if you saw this. The High Court in Pakistan just tossed out, most of the challenges, despite the fact that the media there has seen 100% of the returns, and the challenges are entirely legitimate. It's like not even a he said, she said. So the court process seems to already have played out. Does the State Department want to see an independent investigation, as members of Congress are calling for?
So I don't know what venue's not the right word, but what body they're proposing to conduct an independent investigation would be. I'm happy to look at that if there's a specific proposal. Right now, we think as a matter of first course, it's that the legal system play itself out in Pakistan. That's the appropriate first step to take, and we think that's the step that should be taken. If there are additional steps that ought to be entertained, we're happy to look at them at that time.
So what are your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, so earlier in the briefing, another reporter had asked for a general reaction to the unfolding events in Pakistan. He referred broadly to the statement that he had issued on Friday, and then added that he hoped that this would, be resolved in the Pakistani courts, which is why I followed up with the question that you played there, where I noted to him that, it appears that the court is already dispatching of all of these challenges, despite the fact that they're not just credible challenges. They are, they're a lock. Like, we have seen the Form 45s. People have done the math. This is not a he said, she said issue. There's no gray area here. Yet the court has thrown them out. So will the State Department, follow the lead of so many members of Congress who are saying there should be an independent investigation, and until there is one, there should be no recognition of a new government? And his answer was interesting. He didn't rule it out. He said, let's let this first process play out, and then after that we'll talk about what a follow-up process would need to be.
So I want to understand one thing. In 2011, when I used to visit State Department from Pakistan, my understanding is this: 1 or 2 hours before the actual Q&A session, question answer session, questions have to be submitted so that the State Department team looks at them and explores the answers. So is it still the practice?
Sometimes I'll email them ahead of time, and if I think that they're going to have no idea what I'm asking about, because it's useless to get I have no idea what you're asking me about answer from the podium. But in general, no, you don't have to. And I knew that they would be up to speed on what's been going on in Pakistan. So that's not a required practice by any stretch. You should start coming to the briefings. in fact,
it's hard work, But just to picking on this thing, when Matthew Miller makes sort of commits that we can look at a sort of a mechanism, it's just the Matthew Miller saying this, or is this some sort of commitment on behalf of the United States Department of State?
He is speaking on behalf of the Department of State, which is why he's always so circumspect and usually unwilling to make any type of commitments one way or another. Because if he says something from the podium there, that is officially the position of the United States State Department.
And were you aware of the fact that Salman Akram Raja and about 18 petitions in this Lahore High Court were turned down, and the Lahore High Court Justice Bakr Najmi asked all these people to go to the Election Commission, which in the first instance is responsible for all what has been done? Were you aware of that?
I had seen the news flash just as we were going into the briefing. I hadn't gotten into the details, but I had seen that, and I saw in particular Rayhan Adar's case was thrown out among others. So there were some that I was familiar with. So I'd seen the news, but not all of the details.
So he also said that they've expressed their concerns privately.
We did express concerns publicly. We also expressed those concerns privately and joined the EU, the UK, and other countries in doing so.
Privately to who? To the government?
I thought that was interesting.
Or to the army?
I thought that was interesting, and that is, he did not detail exactly who they spoke privately to. But you can imagine that it would be the people that they normally speak to, which would be the military. So they may have communicated it through a variety of channels, but certainly in Pakistan, they know who got the calls and they know what was said.
And in terms of the irregularities, what are they looking to see how these are being addressed? Do you get any sense of what they're looking for?
I think they're looking for a process that can appear legitimate enough for them to put a stamp on it. But I don't think they've found that yet.
I think the huge problem and the complex challenge for the Pakistani authorities and the military and the election commission and the whole caretaker setup is that this is the first time that they have been caught literally with their pants down and red-handed, in the sense that the PTI polling agents were smart enough. I mean, someone was telling me they were like gorillas trained, because they were told that you have to get hold of the Form 45.
Do not leave without it. Yeah.
Don't want to leave without it. And they were able to persuade the polling staff and the presiding officers to issue them the Form 45s, which they were supposed to give to the people within an hour or so of the end of the election process. So when the polling process stops at 5 p.m., within an hour, I mean, one polling station can be generally 600-700 votes or up to 2,000 votes. So very quickly, all the polling agents have to leave with the copies. You know, it's like not only the PTI, PPP, Jamaat-e-Islami, something. And the interesting thing is happening is that now other parties like Jamaat-e-Islami also has the same Form 45s. And Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan has the Form 45s. And independents have the Form 45s. So it's not just that the PTI candidates have the Form 45. Now, when Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan and Jamaat-e-Islami also gives their copies of the Form 45 to the PTI, then it becomes a huge problem. So right now what they're doing is they're relying upon technicalities that, you know, like the courts are saying, oh, we can't basically hear this case. You have to go to the election commission. But they can't defeat the mathematics. I think the mathematics is the problem over here.
That is the problem. And I think if they had to do over again, they would have probably throttled Twitter and Facebook sooner. And B, they would have not allowed the Form 45s to be released, and they would have not, which then allowed, you know, as you saw, broadcast television to share with the entire country what was going on. Once that was out, it becomes an insurmountable task to flip the results without creating a massive amount of ruckus. Now, you can still do it, but it's going to create ruckus, and the State Department does not, you know, is going to be embarrassed by that kind of ruckus, because it makes it harder for them to pretend to care about democracy in other countries if they so glaringly are shown to be not supportive of it here.
And in terms of your experience, how strong a statement is this? I mean, we recently had the Bangladesh elections in January. So how do you weigh up this comment with regard to Pakistan's elections?
It still does not include any sticks. You know, there. You know, when it comes to Bangladesh, there's talk of travel restrictions, visa restrictions, sanctions, the Magnitsky Act. There's a lot that the U.S. can do and in a very targeted way, to, you know, specific people that changes a lot of behavior. Those, we don't know what they said privately. It'd be interesting to find out, and maybe we can find out. But publicly, they have not made any of those kinds of threats yet. But the statements have been much more stern and firmly worded than they have been in the past. So at least,
what is Magnitsky? What is Magnitsky Act versus the Leahy Act? What's the difference?
Magnitsky is it's named after this Russian guy, and basically what it does is it allows you to confiscate the U.S. property of foreigners who are accused of human rights abuses or undermining elections. So if, let's say, any of the Pakistan establishment owns property in New York City or has U.S. bank accounts, the Magnitsky Act could be used to seize that, and has been used to seize that. And it's a very serious. It's a threat that's taken very seriously by people who have U.S. possessions.
And the Leahy Act?
Leahy is about government aid. So U.S. security assistance that is going, to, say, Pakistan would come under review by the State Department under the Leahy Act. And if it's found that it was funding or financing units that were involved in human rights abuses, that money can be blocked through no act of Congress, just simply by the State Department enacting it.
Right, Ryan, a lot of Congress people, congressmen and women, are putting huge amount of pressure. There's been statement after statement from different congressmen on both parties. Can they put more pressure on the administration for stronger action? I think to some extent, the statement we've got today is very different. I know on the day of the election, in fact, you were also at the briefing that day, and you asked the representative, I think it was
Vedant Patel
at the time, and he gave a very airy-fairy type of answer back to you, a wishy-washy, standard rote answer. Whereas this statement from Matthew is far stronger, and we were already seeing what was happening on ground the day when you asked that initial question. Right. So do you think it was Congress's pressure that has made the State Department?
What happened between Vedant Patel to Matthew Miller?
I think it was the pressure from Congress, and I think it was also the days and days now of evidence covered by the BBC, New York Times, Washington Post. Like, we're now, when I asked that question of Vedant Patel, the New York Times coverage still said Nawaz Sharif is the runner and the military is in firm control. Like, so the story had not kind of penetrated yet the consciousness, and I think there was still maybe some hope that it wouldn't, that this will blow over. They'll sort this out over there, but it's clear by today that that's not the case. So I think both of those things changed, but I do think you're right that dozens of members of Congress coming out forcefully is felt by the State Department.
Why do you think they did it?
The members of Congress?
Yeah, why were the members of Congress so interested? Is this democracy? Is this PTI diaspora pressure? What kind of drove them towards that?
The international media.
Yeah, I think some of it is the coverage that's been done. I know The Intercept has a big audience on Capitol Hill. I think some of it might be related, interestingly, to the war in Gaza. That you may have a lot of members of Congress who are feeling a lot of heat from Arab American constituencies, and might feel like this is something they can give.
Okay, very interesting.
It's easy to stand up for democracy and stand up for American values, especially if you're not the State Department, which has other values that it needs to or that it wants to push around the country. I think of that, and I think the Pakistani diaspora has become much more active and loud and organized in the last 6 months or so. So I think they're probably hearing from people.
So coming to this, the Pakistani authorities are actually playing with the whole thing. They're actually trying to create delays. They think that if they buy time, the matter will start to die. They're reaching out to all the countries. For instance, no country so far has actually congratulated them for the election. Not even India. No, not Britain, not France, not Germany. I was looking in the Twitter. So none of the major stakeholders of the Pakistani state system have welcomed the election results, right? So it's in fact a huge problem. So the Pakistani embassies are racing out and trying to extract some sort of concessionary statement from anywhere, and they're not getting it. So they want the courts, and they control the high courts. So they're trying to delay the matter so that they can actually quieten the people through the usual methods of stick and tyranny. What can the Congress people do? I mean, because they have a stick of a military security cooperation. State Department can come under pressure from certain group of congressmen or the senators. They can call that we need to basically look at we need to scrutinize the election results. Is Leahy Act being violated? I mean, after all, right to have a free and fair vote is a fundamental human right. So something like that.
I think it's yes, that they can do that, and they can also push for targeted, individual sanctions on like named officials who are involved with the process. That really does get people's attention if they have property here in the United States. Even if they don't, the travel restrictions are huge, and that can. But also, they can just pick up the phone. State Department can just pick up the phone and basically lay out a firm U.S. position if they want to. The question from members of Congress will be, how serious are they about this? Is this something that they're just putting out statements about to satisfy a constituency, or do they actually genuinely care about getting a particular outcome?
So what PTI is doing, they're actually constructing a massive website that is going to place all the Form 45s. So if every constituency has, say, 200 plus Form 45, that means 200 constituencies will have 40,000 Form 45. So they're creating a meticulous, smart website on insaf.pk, which, by the way, has been banned and blocked in Pakistan, but is possible to be accessible within the United States. So they're working through the VPNs, and they're putting up all the Form 45 over there so that anyone can access that thing and can actually see that they have the actual results. And the electoral results have been fudged by creating fake Form 47s. So if the Congress wants to, congressional staffers can actually, this data source can be a huge help for any congressional staffer that wants to really take up the issue.
Yes, and I think just the TV broadcasts have been already extremely helpful. Like the viral videos that have been circulating in Pakistan of vote totals going from 85,000 with 90% counted down to 55,000. Congressional staffers don't have to be geniuses at mathematics to know that when you count more votes, your vote totals go up, not down. And so I think just that alone has persuaded anybody who has paid attention to it that, okay, there's actually something here. I think it will make them feel better that there are now, there are going to be thousands of Form 45s available to review, but I don't think they'll necessarily even need to review them because the fraud was so in your face.
That's right.
Where do you think, or where do you see this going with regard to the State Department?
I don't know if they even know where it's going, because I think part of them is absorbing the mass turnout for PTI. And do
you think they were expecting it, by the way?
I don't think they were. No, I think they thought the same thing, that if you dismantle a party, take it off the ballot, make them run as independents, abduct them, make it impossible for them to campaign without getting killed, that they will lose at the ballot box.
Do you think that's
we'll call that free and fair?
They've come to that realization that we will work with any party. The fact that that's, as you pointed out yourself as well, this is being seen as a bit of a positive by PTI workers, because until then, Imran Khan was thought to be that the Americans are viewing him as a no-no. That's the reason why Biden in the first place didn't call him. And of course, definitely after the regime change, the whole talk of regime change after that, the Americans were definitely not wanting to talk to him. But do you think the fact that he's got this 25 to 30 million people who've come out to vote for him, that the United States administration has thought, okay, let's maybe rethink this one?
Right. I think that's right. I think they're absorbing that fact that his supporters are not going anywhere, that they're now a fact of politics and geopolitics that has to be reckoned with. I think their clear preference before was not to have to deal with Imran Khan, was to get somebody in there who they felt was easier to deal with. But it's not as if they can't deal with him. Right. No,
and if you put yourself in his, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, to your point. Yeah, like he has said many times that he's not, and he said in his interview with me, like the U.S. misunderstands some of his bombast and rhetoric as implacably hostile to the United States. When my read, I'm curious for your take on it, that's not actually the case. A little bit of hard diplomacy, and there's no reason to think the United States and Imran Khan and Imran Khan run Pakistan can't be on friendly terms.
For instance, the expression "absolutely not" is a very common British expression. So anyone who has grown up in Britain, I mean, if you come across ordinary British people, I mean, the common expression "absolutely not" is very common. I mean, look at Piers Morgan, for instance. He uses that in every program probably 10 times. Absolutely not. So I was looking at some of the older interviews other than that interview on the HBO, and Imran Khan in many other interviews has also said absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, I mean, absolutely not has been done to death. They have turned it as direct affront, as he was throwing a challenge to the power of the United States. I mean, he just basically said absolutely not, which is a very...
Right. And the U.S. took that as, okay, well, then it's war. Yeah. Right. But what I think what the State Department can do is take a breath. Like, okay, what did he really mean by that? Look, he's not going anywhere. Let's talk to him and see what we can work out.
One thing is that what did he mean by that? And maybe there was a slight misunderstanding or overemphasis on what he was actually saying. But the second part is, do you think there is some change in the message that he actually needs to give them as well?
Good question.
Well, first he would have to be given the opportunity to give a message, right? I mean, there was very
limited. What should that message be?
I mean, that's not for me to say, really. Like, I feel uncomfortable.
Put yourself in the foot of Antony Blinken and the American administration. Just because you're American, we think you should think like them.
Right. I mean, what do they want to hear?
What do they want to hear? Yeah.
Who are they in the first instance? Is this the NSA? Is this the Secretary of State?
Right. Who is they? Like, and are we still talking about drone bases? For over the horizon attacks on the Taliban? Are we talking about, rejecting Chinese infrastructure investment? Are we talking about making weapons for Ukraine? Are we talking about boycotting, Russian wheat and oil? I don't know. There's a lot of things that the U.S. demands that are not very tenable to anybody who's going to, be governing Pakistan with any sovereignty. But that's the case with India. That's the case with lots of other countries, and we still manage to have relations with them. That's what diplomacy is about. But yeah, we are, we ask a lot, and that's for sure.
What about with regard to China or Pakistan's relationship with China?
Yeah, that's and that seems to be central to the whole thing. Right? We want it. What it seems like is we want Pakistan to normalize and be buddies with India and help India, push back against China and not to deepen, financial ties with China. But that ship has kind of sailed.
It's very interesting. A few hours ago, I interviewed the former NSA, National Security Advisor of the Trump administration, who, by the way, hates Trump, John Bolton, as you know, right? So I had about 15, 16 minutes of interaction with John Bolton. And he said that the PTI supporters, he congratulated them. He said that they have won the day. They're on the right side of the history. They need to be reassured that they have the right to, whatever. And then he said that I want to send a message to the Pakistani generals that given the overwhelming response and mandate of the Pakistani people, it's futile to reject the mandate. And you have
That's what Bolton said?
Yeah, Bolton said. Bolton said, I'm saying it publicly, but I also like to tell them privately that given the overwhelming response, I've just uploaded that video, that overwhelming response and the kind of results that have come up, that needs to be accepted. And it's futile for the military, for Pakistan, and it's the best interest of US-Pakistan relationship that these results should be accepted. And perhaps the generals, he said generals, he didn't say military, he said perhaps the generals underestimated. They didn't realize how deeply the popular support for Imran Khan and PTI is, but now they have seen it and they need to accept that. But then all of a sudden, there was another stream of thought that came up from nowhere. I wasn't really expecting that stream to come up. He said that Imran Khan has been saying all kinds of nasty things about us, about the America. And I said, well, the nasty things only happened after he lost the government. I mean, before in April 2022, he what nasty things has he ever said about the US? I mean, he had a working relationship with White House. And on it, he suddenly changed the tack. He said, look, it's the proximity to the China, And he said that there has to be, Pakistan has got far too close to China. And I said, how can you even blame Imran Khan for that? Because such kind of strategic decisions are beyond any prime minister. But then he changed the decision, but kept on saying that China is a threat to the United States. And China is consolidating its periphery. And Pakistan has to understand this thing, that this is actually, this is actually a problem for us. So China is somewhere around. China is a problem.
Yeah, very much. So what Pakistan needs to do is pick up and move its country, thousands of miles away from China, and it stubbornly refuses to do so, which is a thumb in the eye of the United States every single day, that it continues to exist right near China. So yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today.
No,
Same to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Najma.
Thank you.